And welcome into this week's edition of Sunday Morning Matters Extra. David Valadao, the former congressman, he's launching his campaign this week. He is our guest. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So it's been a busy week. You're announcing that you're getting back into this race, the rematch, if you will, the last congressional race that was decided. What has been, I guess, really the feedback that you're getting from constituents, from the district, 21?
A lot of disappointment. Most have never heard a single word from...
From you announcing?
No.
Okay.
From the current member that's representing them, or supposedly representing them. And that's their frustration, is they haven't heard anything from him. And they don't know what he's doing for them. They won the election, went to Washington, and haven't heard anything from them. And that's a lot of frustration. Constituent casework, things like that, making sure that their needs are being met. But the most important is being vocal on issues that are important for the Central Valley. Where is he at on water? What has he done? What legislation has he introduced to make sure that water is actually delivered here to the Central Valley?
But he got to Washington because the voters put him there. And it was close. Very close. We know the 862 votes. So my question is, where was the disconnect for you in the 2018 election that put him over the top? And now that he has a record, maybe you can attack that, but maybe some people are saying, hey, there's a reason why we put him there.
No, I mean, obviously there was a huge... There's a difference when you look at what happens on a presidential first term. It's happened during Bush, it happened during Obama, and it obviously it happened during Trump. There were a lot of Republican voters who didn't show up. There was about 5,000 actually in the Central Valley who didn't show up to vote that we needed to vote. And so we need to make sure that we target them and really encourage them to show up and vote this round. 5,000 is more than enough to get me across the line.
The local Democratic Party, they're already attacking you, as you could imagine. They say you lost the race in 2018 because you aligned your ideas on issues that President Trump sees. Now, before you answer, how true do you actually think that is? And will you continue, as you move forward in the 2020 campaign, to align your ideas, the Central Valley vision, to the vision of President Trump?
It was never aligning with one president or the other. What we voted on, or what I voted on, was always things that affect the Central Valley, and making sure that those were best. So if they're going to take any sort of number or any sort of attack on that, what issue would they vote against? Would they vote against me giving raises to our troops here in the Central Valley, especially our sailors out there in Lemoore Naval Air Station? Would they oppose making sure that we had the infrastructure there, the dollars there to keep that base up and going? Would they oppose my legislation or the votes that I had to make sure we had teaching health centers to help bring doctors to be trained at clinics around the Central Valley and get those doctors to build roots here and hopefully stay in the Central Valley, one of the biggest issues we struggle with? Would they vote, or they encourage T.J. Cox to vote against water for the Central Valley? Or what would they do? I mean, every time I introduced a piece of legislation, it was always bipartisan. I had a lot of support. I moved legislation off the House floor and even forced debates to get things like the WIN Act done. We got the executive order done. All that required bipartisan support, and that was something I'm very proud of, and it's something I worked very hard to do. The stuff for the teaching health centers, that benefits everyone throughout the Central Valley. These clinics are popping up all over the valley, and if we have the ability to put doctors there and finish out their education there in those communities, they're more likely to build roots there and establish roots there and actually continue to serve those communities once they're done with school. Those are positive for us. Would they vote against that?
Well, that's the question for the voters, so I'll let them answer that. But I would say this. If you look back at 2018, there was that blue wave, if you will, and you guys were the last to stand, right? You and T.J. Cox, and then it took a month for that congressional race to be decided. Could it be the same this time around? How close do you think this is going to be?
Well, it's hard to say right now, but the fact that...
But you do some pre-polling, I would imagine. Yeah. What is that telling you?
It's saying that we were in a very good position today. And so I'm actually excited about that. But on the most important side of this is the fact that you've got one of the toughest districts that was held by a Republican before the 2018 election. Mm-hmm. The voter registration, we were outnumbered by about 16, 17 points, and it ended up being less than a point, 0.08% of the election total. And so that means that I had bipartisan support for my election, and that's very important. And I'm going to expand that and grow that to make sure that we're successful this coming November of 2020.
But how much, I guess, I get what you're saying about how you're not going to align yourself with Central Valley issues and President Trump is going to do what he's going to do. But still, you're a backer of President Trump. True?
No, my job is to represent the 21st Congressional District. It's never been backing or supporting or aligning myself. If it is good for the Central Valley, I don't care if it's President Obama, if it's Jerry Brown, or if it's President Trump. It's
But you
my
want
job.
to see President Trump in office.
No, I want to see someone in office that's going to fight for the Central Valley, and it's going to fight for our country to be safe and
Is he
secure.
not fighting for the Central Valley?
He's actually, the executive order was very helpful for us. Him being vocal on the waterfront has been very good for us. What we've got going on in Sacramento now with SB1, where they're literally going to try to prevent us from delivering water here to the Central Valley, and no one from the Democrat side is stepping up and fighting, is a problem for us. So yeah, I'm not happy with what is being done, and the fact that no one, the person representing the 21st Congressional District today is not stepping up to defend the Central Valley and fight what these people up in Sacramento and even those in Washington are trying to do to us. I live in this community. This is my home. These are my neighbors. I want to make sure that we have a safe and secure water supply. I want to make sure that we have great schools for our kids, the schools my kids go to as well. His kids don't go to any of the schools in the 21st Congressional District. What does he care about that? I mean, those are important issues because that's where I live and that's where I make a living.
I want to finish with this because I think a lot of people will look at this and saying, okay, whether T.J. Cox won, whether it was a fluke or not, he won. And so nobody entered this race waiting to see what David Valadao was going to do. And you have to admit, you waited probably as long as you could wait to jump into this race.
I could have waited a couple more months.
You could have. You could have. But you don't want to do that because you got to raise money, and that takes a while. So when you look at this, was this always going to be set up as the rematch? Because no other Republican wanted to jump into District 21. Why is that?
It's because it's a tough district for Republicans. I mean, voter registration will tell you that. Anyone that can do the math figures it out real fast. I had, when I was in Congress, I had the toughest Republican district of any other Republican in the nation. There was maybe one in Florida that was a little bit tougher. And as far as voter registration or demographics, it was also one of the toughest districts. But again, being the son of immigrants, someone who can reach across the aisle, someone who has a reputation of being an open book and having good conversations with people and looking for opportunities to work together, is something that people like. The fact that my kids go to school here, I live here, I've always lived in the 21st Congressional District, it's my community, it's my home, is something I take very seriously. And making sure that we can do the best for them in Washington is something I take very seriously as well.
Have you heard from T.J. Cox?
No, I have not.
Have you had any dialogue with him over the last year and a half, or what, 12 months, a little more than that he's been in office?
No, I have not.
Nothing. How do you think this is going to go down?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a fight. We always know it will be, and it's something we've always struggled with from the very first time I ran till now. So no one's ever shy about that. I mean, anyone that looks at the numbers says this is a tough uphill climb, but we've always been successful. And this past cycle, a little bit different. But when you look at the numbers, the fact that it was that close tells me that no one's safe.
All right, David Valadao. Can't wait to see this race.
Thanks for having me.